So we're here today with Malaysia's Deputy Minister of International Trade and Industry, Dr. Kian Ming. Welcome to the SCMP, Dr. Ong. We'll get
Thank
underway.
you for inviting me.
So Malaysia-China trade last year rose to a record 443 billion ringgit. That emphasizes Malaysia's trade reliance on China. But has enough been done, do you think, to make the Malaysian economy resilient to China-linked economic shocks, such as a prolonged trade war or a sudden debt crisis? And do you think it's even possible for Malaysia to build a buffer to weather that storm?
Yeah, I think our continued trade relationship with China would definitely increase, not just from a trade perspective, but from an investment perspective as well. China has been Malaysia's largest FDI country of origin for the past 3 years, and we look for that to continue in the foreseeable future. And I think that's a good thing in the sense that the interlinkages in the supply chain between Malaysia, China, as well as the larger world is indicative of a very vibrant economy in Malaysia as well as in China. In terms of some of the buffering issues that you talked about just now, it's one of the reasons why I'm here in Hong Kong to evaluate the impact of some of the US-China trade tensions, and also to see the opportunities for Malaysia to attract more China-based companies to invest in Malaysia in order to diversify their manufacturing activities, and as an indirect result also give Malaysia more flexibility in terms of that trade relationship.
So should the trade war continue, what effect do you see that having on Malaysia as well as the region?
I think whenever two large nations like China and US engage in a protracted trade dispute, it won't be good for smaller countries like Malaysia. China is our largest trading partner, the US is our third largest trading partner. So obviously we do hope, optimistically, that the trade issues, at least in terms of the tariffs, would be resolved hopefully in the next couple of months. And we monitor that situation very closely in our Beijing as well as our DC MITI offices. But if, let's say, there are ongoing tensions that perhaps cannot be resolved in the short term, or even in the long term, we do see there to be a restructuring of trade and investment relationships, in the sense that I think there will be more companies that will look towards expanding their operations, expanding their capabilities in Southeast Asia, and at the same time for countries like Malaysia and China to expand their trading relationship within the context of Asia. So there may be perhaps a shifting away from too much reliance on trading relationships with developed countries, although they would still be important, but looking at expanding our networks within Asia.
So that ties into your earlier point, so let's look for the opportunities that are created by this.
Yes, and given the fact that Asia is now sort of like the new place where people are looking to for trade and investment opportunities, I think it's these trade tensions gives an additional impetus to companies, including those in China, to look at trade and investment from a different perspective, and we welcome these kinds of opportunities in Malaysia.
What do you think investors can expect from Dr. Mahathir's April visit to Beijing?
I think the fact that our Prime Minister Dr. Mahathir visited China as one of his first few overseas visits after the general election last year shows our continued commitment towards this very important relationship. Dr. Mahathir was one of the first world leaders to announce that he will be attending the Belt and Road Forum in April. So that shows our continued commitment towards this very important relationship, especially since we are celebrating our 45th year of diplomatic relations in 2019. So we can expect us at MITI to be able to have more opportunities to expand our trading and investment relationship with China, and this will continue to set the tone that Malaysia is very welcoming of investments from China to Malaysia. And I think if, let's say, this can be definitely reciprocated by the Chinese government, it will give confidence to Chinese investors that despite the change in government, we're still very open for business, and we do want to continue to attract good quality Chinese investments to come to Malaysia. And my visit here to Hong Kong has shown that the interest, particularly in the manufacturing sector, is one area that is full of promise.
And on that note as well, how do you feel the back and forth over the China-linked mega projects such as the ECRL? What effect do you think that's had on trade, or will have on trade?
I think the deliberations on that particular project has not had any effect on Malaysia-China trade. In fact, as you pointed out just now, Malaysia-China trade went to record levels. We grew by about 8% last year, compared to an overall growth rate of slightly over 6% for total trade for Malaysia as a whole. So what I think the ECRL project is important, in terms of the relationship between both countries, is to show a commitment towards resolving this issue. So, for example, Malaysia, we are still open to negotiations, and on the part of the Chinese contractor, they are also open to renegotiations on the price of the East Coast Rail Link project. So much so that they have said that they are willing to cut the cost by about 50%. So on the part of the Malaysian government, what we want to have greater clarity on is not just the cost of construction, but also the cost of operations as well. So we want to be able to come to a win-win solution. And I'm sure that the person who's negotiating this contract, Tun Daim, will be able to have a good deal, which he will then pass on to the Prime Minister to announce in good time.